Leo hadn't expected his evening jog to change the course of human history. The park was nearly empty as twilight painted the sky in shades of amber and violet. Leo's worn sneakers pounded against the gravel path, his breath forming small clouds in the crisp autumn air. He was rounding the lake when he saw her, a small figure sitting on a bench, shoulders hunched, clearly distressed. At first glance, she looked human. A young girl, perhaps 16, with silver hair that cascaded down her back like moonlight. But as Leo slowed his pace and drew closer, he noticed the subtle differences. Her skin had an almost imperceptible luminescence, and her eyes, those enormous eyes, held depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. She was crying. Silent tears traced paths down her cheeks as she stared at her feet. Her bare feet. The ground was cold, littered with small stones and broken glass. Leo felt his heart constrict. Whatever she was, wherever she came from, she was in pain. "Hey," he said softly, approaching slowly so as not to startle her. "Are you okay?" She looked up, those cosmic eyes widening in fear. For a moment, Leo thought she might run. But then she saw his expression, concern, not threat, and something in her seemed to ease. "I am lost," she said in English, though her accent belonged to no place on earth. "My transport. It malfunctioned. I was separated from my guardian. I have been walking for hours." Leo glanced at her feet again. They were cut, bleeding a strange, silver-blue substance that definitely wasn't human blood. He didn't hesitate. Sitting down beside her, Leo began unlacing his sneakers. They weren't much old Nike running shoes he'd had for 3 years, with worn soles and frayed laces. But they were warm, and they were protection. "Here," he said, holding them out to her. The girl, Lisa, she said her name, was stared at the shoes as if he'd offered her the crown jewels. "I cannot accept this. You need them for your journey home." "I'll be fine," Leo insisted with a smile. "It's only a mile. But you need them more than I do." Lisa's eyes filled with fresh tears, but these were different. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you help someone like me? Someone not of your world?" Leo shrugged, still smiling. "Because you need help. That's reason enough, isn't it?" With trembling hands, Lisa accepted the shoes. They were too large for her, but she tied them tightly, and Leo could see the relief wash over her face as the cold ground no longer bit at her wounded feet. "I will remember this," she said solemnly, meeting his eyes. "I promise you, Leo of Earth, I will remember." Leo walked home in his socks that evening, his feet cold but his heart warm. He told himself it was just a good deed, nothing more. By the time he reached his apartment, he'd almost convinced himself the girl had been human after all. Maybe a runaway with contacts and hair dye. He slept soundly that night. The sound of thunder woke him at dawn. Except it wasn't thunder. Leo stumbled to his window and froze. The sky was filled with ships, hundreds of them, massive vessels that dwarfed skyscrapers, their hulls gleaming with the same luminescence he'd seen in Lisa's skin. They hung in perfect formation above the city. Silent, except for the low thrumming that vibrated through his bones. His phone exploded with emergency alerts. His television, which had turned itself on, showed news anchors barely containing their panic as they reported the same scene across the globe. The alien fleet had appeared simultaneously over every major city on Earth, but the largest concentration was directly above Leo's neighborhood. A knock at his door made him jump. Standing in his hallway, looking impossibly regal in flowing robes of starlight, was Lisa. Behind her stood figures that could only be guards, tall, armed, and radiating an aura of barely restrained power. "Leo," Lisa said, and her voice carried a weight it hadn't held the night before. "May I enter?" Speechless, he stepped aside. Lisa walked to his window and gazed at the Armada above. "I am 7th Princess of the Luminary Imperium," she said quietly. "Last night, I was fleeing assassins who sabotaged my ship. I crashed on your world with nothing, no guards, no weapons, no way to call for help. I was certain I would die on those cold stones. She turned to face him, and Leo saw tears on her cheeks again. And then a human found me. A stranger who owed me nothing, who had no reason to help, who could not have known what I was. And he gave me his shoes. Her voice broke. Do you understand what that means to my people, Leo? Shoes are sacred to the Luminari. To give your own shoes to another is to say, your journey is more important than mine. Your pain matters more than my comfort. Leo's mouth was dry. Exactly, Lisa said. And now she was smiling. The Imperium has observed your species for 300 years. We have watched you wage wars, destroy your environment, commit unspeakable cruelties. We were certain humans were unworthy of contact. She crossed to him and took his hands. But last night, one human taught me that we were wrong. You showed me that humanity, for all its flaws, possesses something my people lost millennia ago. The instinct to help without question, to give without expecting return. That is true civilization, Leo. Not technology or empire, but compassion. Through the window, the massive ships began to move, repositioning themselves. I summoned the Armada, Lisa continued. Not to invade, but to witness. Every ship up there carries a member of the High Council. They needed to see your world through new eyes, my eyes, because of what you did for me, Leo of Earth. Humanity will not face the stars alone anymore. We will guide you, trade with you, share our knowledge with you. She reached into her robes and pulled out his old sneakers, somehow cleaned and restored. These will be placed in the grand archive of the Imperium, she said softly, so that every Luminari child will learn the story of the human who gave his shoes to a lost princess. The story of Leo, who taught an empire the meaning of kindness. Leo looked at his shoes, then at the princess, then at the Armada filling the sky. I just gave you my shoes, he said weakly. Lisa laughed, a sound like starlight made audible. Yes, she agreed. You just gave me your shoes. And in doing so, you changed everything. As the sun rose over a world that would never be the same, Leo understood. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization hadn't come through governments or militaries, through grand speeches or advanced technology. It had come through a simple act of compassion on a cold evening in an empty park. Sometimes, that was all it took to change the universe. Just one person and a pair of old shoes.